Welcome everybody to another Touchpoints Insights look at the US banking app market. And in this session, we are looking at the Tier 1 banks. Now, quick insight there, looking at the March data, we've got Truist as a clear underperformer, but it's possibly one that we're going to look at in the future. But today's focus, we're going to look at TD Bank and some of the improvements that they've made. And another theme that's really coming through in the improvements in Android, making some of the biggest impact on highlights and engaged customer ratings. Now, Tony, I'll hand it over to you because you are the insights man and head of customer intelligence here at Touchpoint. It's really fitting that you're the one that leads this.
Brilliant. So hopefully you can see my screen there with my banks in a row. So today we're actually covering off these 5 banks here, the Tier 1 banks, we've labelled those. We do cover off the others in separate sessions, and even the neobanks is another separate, we've got some data on those as well. But today we're looking at these Tier 1 banks, so US Bank, Capital One, PNC, Truist, and TD in America, so North America. So let's just jump in and see what's going on in that market. So first of all, there's a lot going on here with these 5 banks, but I've just focused on one. Glenn mentioned up front about Truist. So just on this score we're using what's called an engaged customer score. So that for us is a really true measure of what's going on in the market, and it's really sensitive to movements. So if the engaged customer score goes down, you know there's something clearly gone wrong. If it goes up, we can actually understand why. And this is a lot more sensitive to, if you're used to looking at, say, App Store ratings, they tend to remain fairly flat across time and don't tell you much at all. But this score will tell you a lot of things. So just look, obviously Truist has actually improved from August, but it's still sort of underperforming in this particular competitive set. Let's just hide that for the moment to expand our axes in here. So we can see a few things going on. Obviously, we've seen PNC has dropped away from its sort of a reasonable peak in December. And we've got the sort of 2 at the top there, which are reasonably flat and consistent and high, which is US Bank and Capital One. But one of the ones which is interesting is looking at TD. So TD does perform relatively well, and it's above 4 most periods, but it has dropped a little bit into October to February. But what I want to look at here is what's happened. What's this increase that's happened here to bring it back up to that top level with these top 3 in here? Let's have a quick look at that. So I'll just jump across here to our next view. All I've done here is just divided in here. I'll just show you what I'm doing. I'm looking at TD and just looking and just breaking that apart into Android versus iOS. And there's a clear story going in here is that we've seen that consistency is what we're seeing for iOS across time. It's really good. It's sitting there at above 4.2 consistently. But that movement in the score has come from an Android movement. So the drop in October, that reflects exactly what we saw in the score previously, and that pick up in February into March. Now, because the volumes are generally a lot higher for most brands for Android, any movements in Android are going to have a clear impact on the score overall. So let's have a look at another perspective here. I'll just open all of these up so we can see what's going on. Now, what we've got here is what's known as a surf analysis. So what this looks at is 4 key areas of pain points. So these are problems. So the lower is better in this case here. So we see here there's 4 key areas. So security and authentication, so logging in issues, biometrics and all the related things around that. User interface, so problems with customers, how they're having problems with how to use something, or they can't see something they're used to seeing in the app, for example. Reliability is a pretty clear one. That's about crashes and bugs and various connections around that. Features is specifically where people are having problems around certain features and what they're doing in there. So what we're looking at here, I'll just show you in here, looking at TD and in particular Android, which we saw before, that is what we've seen the most movement, where that movement's come from. So in a couple of areas here, we can see that one of the biggest movements is actually coming from this area here around problems with features, so pain points around that. Let's expose that on its own, just have a quick look at that. And we can see here very clearly that as of December, there was a pickup in that. And as of February, we had about 15% of customers talking about problems with the features, specific features. and then it's improved into March. So yeah, a very good improvement. It's actually a solid jump. It's nearly halved in that sense. We can see on the right, getting an idea about what's going on. So this is just looking at February and looking at the features. And there's it's the mobile deposits in there about the checks. The app is crashing, or there's various versions of that. But that is actually more than halved, or around halved in levels in March, which is great. Let's have a quick, a bit of a detailed look about some underlying topics in here. If I look on the left over here, I can actually see what's happened. This is people talking about that poor check experience. At a higher level, it's gone from 8% down to 4% in March. This is comparing January to March. It's halved in there. But also, if we were just looking at that, other things would be hidden from us. But what we can see here is that the speed of the app has also been improved. So there's multiple things that have been improved to get that score up, not just the check scanning improvements. So the speed is actually like it's a massive improvement, a 10 times improvement. Login issues have more than halved. So it's great improvement across there as well. So a solid improvement across multiple aspects with recent updates. And I'd like to give you some context in here as well about where TD sits in the market. This is just looking at March, and we're looking at that surf analysis. So as we said before, it's very sensitive to those movements in the scores. And we can see like the example of Truist, who is sitting sort of along the bottom of these particular brands, in total is sort of more than 40% of the feedback from customers is specifically around these areas, the pain points in here. We can see at the top there, US Bank is under 10, and that's probably where we get the top performers are consistently under 15 and ideally under 10% in what they do. And we can see there that Capital One is just over 10, and TD, with that improvement, has gone, it's probably just over 15, probably 17 odd, but it's moving down towards that 15 and 10% area. So continued improvements is going to get TD into that space where US Bank traditionally plays. So a great improvement for TD with multiple aspects, including check deposits, the speed of the app, and login issues being resolved. Thank you, Glenn.
Thanks, my friend. It's amazing to see the impact that can be had when you're focusing on those really, really hyper-specific areas and really drilling down into operating system, not just features and things like that are in the app. So yet again, a great insightful session. I thank you so much for the time that you've spent today. And if anyone's wanting to have a chat to us around their bank and their app, feel free to sing out to either Tony or myself, and we will catch you soon. Thanks again, Tony.